You know that moment when you walk into a beautifully designed room and something just feels off? Maybe it's the glossy plastic button stuck to the wall next to the doorframe, or the mismatched switch plate that catches your eye every single time. I'm Keiko Tanaka, and today we're unpacking one of the most overlooked decisions in smart home design: whether to hide your switches inside your walls or mount them on the surface. It's not just about technology, it's about what you're willing to see every day and what your walls will actually let you do. You're listening to the Smart Home Setup Podcast. Quick heads up before we dive in, the research, data, and everything you're about to hear is written and verified by real human authors, but the voice delivering it to you is AI generated. I wanted to be upfront about that from the start. Whether you've been listening for a while or you're just discovering the show, I'm really glad you're here. New episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, covering the practical side of smart home tech without the marketing fluff. Today, we're comparing in-wall smart switches to surface mount options. And trust me, there's more nuance here than most guides let on. Let's jump right in. For design-conscious spaces, in-wall smart switches disappear seamlessly but demand electrical work, while surface mount options preserve walls yet introduce visual elements that disrupt clean lines. Your choice comes down to your tolerance for installation complexity versus aesthetic purity. This comparison examines the in-wall versus surface mount decision through the lens of spatial harmony, looking at installation realities, protocol compatibility, automation capabilities, and the visceral experience each approach creates in your daily life. Let me start with a quick comparison to set the stage. In-wall switches require electrical wiring and a neutral wire for most models, often needing a licensed electrician in many jurisdictions. Surface mount switches use adhesive or minimal screws and are totally DIY friendly with no wiring modification. Aesthetically, in-wall switches sit flush with your wall, basically indistinguishable from traditional switches. Surface mount devices have a visible profile, usually protruding anywhere from 3 to 15 millimeters, often with glossy plastic surfaces. For protocols, in-wall switches primarily use Zigbee, Z-Wave, Wi-Fi, and emerging Matter support, requiring a hub for non-Wi-Fi protocols. Surface mount switches use Zigbee, Thread, Matter, and Wi-Fi, with battery-powered models often favoring Thread or Zigbee for energy efficiency. Latency for automation runs 50 to 200 milliseconds for Zigbee and Z-Wave mesh networks, 200 to 500 for Wi-Fi on in-wall switches. Surface mount switches clock in at 50 to 150 milliseconds for Thread, 100 to 250 for Zigbee, depending on mesh strength. Long-term reliability differs significantly. In-wall switches are hardwired, which eliminates battery anxiety, and the physical paddle provides manual fallback. Surface mount switches need battery replacement every 12 to 24 months, and adhesive can degrade in humid environments. Cost-wise, you're looking at the device plus professional installation, typically $150 to $400 per switch total for in-wall. Surface mount runs $25 to $70 for the device only, with no installation cost. Now, let's talk about installation reality and what your walls actually demand. The in-wall versus surface mount question begins not with technology, but with architecture, what your walls contain and what you're willing to disrupt. In-wall switches demand a neutral wire in most cases. Modern smart switches require this third wire to power their radios continuously. The Lutron Caseta wireless smart lighting dimmer switch is a notable exception, using proprietary radio. Check the link below to see the current price. Homes built before the 1980s often lack neutral wires and switch boxes, forcing you into three choices. Run new wiring, which is destructive and expensive. Use specialty switches that don't require neutrals, limited to specific protocols like Lutron's proprietary ClearConnect RF, or abandon in-wall entirely. The installation itself introduces friction most guides downplay. Even with a neutral wire present, you're working with line voltage inside a cramped metal box. Incorrect wiring doesn't just fail, it creates fire hazards or trips breakers during dinner parties. Many jurisdictions require licensed electricians for any line voltage work, adding $100 to $200 per switch in labor. The process disrupts rooms for hours, generates drywall dust, and occasionally reveals surprises like undersized boxes that can't accommodate smart switches' deeper profiles. Surface mount switches sidestep all this. The Lutron Aurora Smart Bulb Dimmer for Philips Hue exemplifies the category's elegance. Check the link below to see the current price. It snaps over an existing toggle switch, requires no wiring, and installs in 30 seconds. Battery-powered models adhere directly to walls or replace existing faceplates without touching electrical. You're trading installation complexity for visible presence, a disc, button panel, or rectangular module that protrudes from your wall surface, casting shadows in raking afternoon light. Protocol considerations shift here, too. In-wall switches typically use Zigbee or Z-Wave for mesh reliability, requiring a compatible hub like Samsung SmartThings, Hubitat Elevation, or Home Assistant with USB dongles. Wi-Fi models exist, but flood your network. 15 switches transmitting status updates create congestion that degrades video call quality. Surface mount switches increasingly favor thread, which forms self-healing mesh networks without hub dependency, though you'll still need a Matter controller like Apple HomePod Mini or Google Nest Hub for automation logic. The honest friction? In-wall switches feel permanent because they are. Mistakes live in your walls for years. Surface mount mistakes peel off but leave adhesive residue or screw holes that mock your impulsive placement. Moving on to aesthetic integration and how presence shapes space, the aesthetic impact isn't binary, it's about where visual attention lands when you enter a room. In-wall switches achieve what I call expected presence. Your eye registers a switch plate where switches belong, then moves on. The Leviton Decora Smart Wi-Fi switch sits flush with standard Decora-style faceplates, maintaining the clean, vertical lines North American rooms expect. Check the link below to see the current price. Walking through a hallway, your gaze doesn't snag on anomalies. The technology exists in the category of door hinges and outlet covers, functional infrastructure your brain filters out. This invisibility depends on faceplate consistency. Mix a glossy white smart switch among matte ivory toggles, and the inconsistency screams louder than either device individually. Achieving true integration means replacing entire rooms' worth of switches, even dumb ones, with matching faceplates, an expense and effort guides rarely account for. Surface mount switches introduce deliberate elements into your visual field. Even thoughtfully designed models like the Philips Hue dimmer switch create small geometric shapes where flat walls once existed. In minimalist spaces where every object earns its presence, a 60-millimeter diameter disc adhered beside a doorframe becomes a conversation, sometimes harmonious, sometimes jarring. Mounting them directly over existing switches preserves wall cleanliness, but makes switches bulkier, more toy-like. The experiential difference emerges at night. In-wall switches illuminate softly, their indicator LEDs embedded within plates. Surface mount buttons often glow brighter, their plastic housings creating small halos in darkness, helpful for finding controls, disruptive if you've carefully eliminated light pollution from bedrooms. Some models allow LED adjustment, many don't. A genuine design flaw across both categories. Most smart switches default to small status LEDs that encode meaning through color changes. Blue means connected, amber means updating, red means offline, a vocabulary invisible to guests and easily forgotten by residents. The automation becomes less intuitive than the mechanical snap of a traditional switch. For invisible integration, prefer switches with single color indicators or none at all, relying instead on the lights themselves as feedback. Material quality varies wildly. Budget in-wall switches arrive with hollow-feeling paddles and faceplates that yellow within months. Premium surface mount models use ABS plastic that, while functional, reads as gadget against plaster or wood trim. The technology becomes visible not through size, but through material mismatch, glossy polymer against matte paint. Now let's dig into automation capabilities and the logic that lives in walls. The intelligence behind in-wall versus surface mount determines whether technology serves your rhythms or demands attention. In-wall switches, hardwired to loads, offer direct control. Pressing the paddle physically completes the circuit even if your hub fails, Wi-Fi drops, or the mesh network collapses. Automation layers atop this mechanical foundation. For example, if motion is detected in a hallway between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., turn the hallway switch to 15% brightness. If motion is detected and the daylight sensor reads less than 300 lux, turn the switch to 100% brightness. Otherwise, do nothing because there's sufficient natural light present. This logic executes on your hub, a SmartThings hub processing Zigbee signals with roughly 80 to 150 milliseconds latency for local automations, longer if cloud processing intervenes. The critical fallback, manual override, always works. Walk to the switch, press the paddle, light comes on. No app, no voice command, no wondering if Alexa heard you. Surface mount switches introduce a layer of abstraction. Battery-powered models stuck to walls don't control electrical loads directly. They send signals to smart bulbs or smart plugs. Press a button, it transmits a Zigbee or Thread command to the hub routes it to the bulb illuminates. This path introduces 100 to 300 milliseconds perceived latency, the gap between button press and light response that feels subtly wrong compared to instant mechanical action. The advantage: location flexibility. Surface mount switches create controls where wiring doesn't exist, beside a bedside table for closet lights, near a reading chair for floor lamps, inside a bathroom for ventilation fans wired to inconvenient locations. The Flick 2 Smart button enables this perfectly, supporting up to 3 actions per button: click, double-click, hold, and working with Matter-compatible hubs via Thread. Check the link below to see the current price. Reliability diverges under failure conditions. If your hub loses power, in-wall switches revert to dumb switches. Local control persists. Surface mount switches controlling smart bulbs lose functionality entirely when hubs fail, because the button-to-bulb conversation requires coordination the hub provides. Battery death introduces additional friction. A surface mount switch fails silently, leaving you puzzled why buttons don't work until you remember to replace CR2032 cells. For energy monitoring, in-wall switches win decisively. Models with built-in power metering track actual load draw, feeding data into energy management systems for consumption analysis. Surface mount switches lack this capability. They know button states, not electrical flow. Protocol interoperability matters intensely here. A Zigbee in-wall switch on a SmartThings hub can trigger Z-Wave plugs, Wi-Fi bulbs, and Thread sensors through hub-level automations. Surface mount Thread buttons benefit from Matter's cross-protocol bridging, allowing a single button to control devices across ecosystems. But only if every device supports Matter and you've configured bindings correctly. The 2026 reality: Matter promises universal control, but manufacturer implementation remains inconsistent. Expect frustration. Let's talk about longevity and maintenance and what persists versus what fades. The in-wall versus surface mount decision echoes differently 5 years from installation. In-wall switches installed correctly function for decades. Mechanical paddles wear like traditional switches, hundreds of thousands of cycles before failure. Electronics fail more readily. Capacitors dry out, radio modules die, firmware updates brick devices. But because they're hardwired, even total electronic failure leaves you with manual control. The GE and Brighton Z-Wave Plus Smart Switch exemplifies workhorse reliability, using proven Z-Wave Plus 700 series radios with strong mesh range, though its bulky neutral wire pigtail makes cramped boxes frustrating. Check the link below to see the current price. The durability concern: protocol obsolescence.
Zigbee and Z-Wave remain stable standards, but specific manufacturers abandon product lines. A 2021 Iris switch becomes an orphan when Lowe's exits the market. Firmware updates cease. Security vulnerabilities linger unpatched. You're left with functional hardware executing increasingly outdated code, eventually incompatible with modern hubs. This argues for choosing established protocol ecosystems like Zigbee 3.0 or Matter-certified devices with broad manufacturer support. Surface mount switches face battery mortality. Even efficient thread devices drain CR2450 cells within 18 to 24 months under normal use. The replacement ritual interrupts the invisible philosophy. You notice the switch when it stops working, pry it open, hunt for specialty batteries. Worse, adhesive degrades. Kitchen-mounted switches near steam sources lose grip. Bathroom humidity weakens 3M tape. Switches fall off walls at 2 a.m., startling cats and residents alike. The pattern I've observed: clients initially love surface mount flexibility, then resent maintenance. Around month 20, they stop replacing batteries promptly. Switches accumulate in drawers, the automation atrophies back to manual control. Except now they're walking to dumb switches, and the expensive smart bulbs are just bulbs.
Physical wear patterns differ too. In-wall paddles develop familiar worn spots where fingertips land, the patina of use. Surface mount buttons, often glossy plastic, show fingerprint oils within weeks. They require periodic cleaning that mechanical switches never demanded. The buttons also invite curiosity. Visitors press them experimentally. Children treat them as toys. An in-wall switch looks utilitarian. A surface mount button looks interactive. For renters and frequent movers, surface mount reversibility outweighs longevity concerns. Remove devices, patch screw holes, restore toggle switches, reclaim deposits. In-wall switches require either leaving them behind, gifting $200+ to landlords, or hiring electricians to restore original wiring, which is rarely economical. So who should choose in-wall smart switches? Homeowners committed to permanence, willing to invest upfront for daily indivisibility. If you're renovating, already opening walls for other work, or building new construction where neutrals run everywhere, in-wall switches integrate technology without announcing its presence. They suit minimalist aesthetics where every visible element matters, where a surface-mounted button would gnaw at your design consciousness each time you entered a room. Choose in-wall if you value absolute manual fallback reliability, if smart home failure means inconvenience, not darkness. If you run complex automations tying switches to energy monitoring, time of use load shifting, or whole home scenes involving dozens of devices, the hardwired power and robust mesh networking justify the installation complexity. You'll need a compatible hub ecosystem and patience for configuration. Budget $200 to $400 per switch, including professional installation, more if wiring needs updates. Accept that you're making a decade-scale decision. These switches will outlast your current smartphone by years. And who should choose surface mount smart switches? Renters, experimenters, and anyone unwilling to commit electricians to their lives. If you're exploring automation gradually, surface switches let you add control points without permanence. They excel in spaces where light switches live in terrible locations. Install surface switches exactly where your hand naturally falls, where your routine demands them. They suit households uncomfortable with electrical work, where safety and simplicity outweigh aesthetic purity. If you rotate through smart home ecosystems, trying new platforms and protocols, surface switches move with you. Peel, relocate, reconfigure. The lower cost encourages experimentation. Try a few switches, assess whether automation actually improves your daily flow before investing thousands.
Choose surface mount if you're implementing Matter cross-platform automation and want flexibility as the standard matures. Thread-based buttons relocate easily as you refine room layouts and discover which controls matter most. Accept battery replacement as routine maintenance and adhesive as semi-permanent rather than forever. Let me address some frequently asked questions. Can in-wall smart switches work without neutral wires? Some in-wall smart switches work without neutral wires by drawing trace current through LED bulbs or using capacitive tricks, but options are limited. Lutron Caseta switches using Clear Connect RF protocol are the most reliable neutral-free solution, while most Zigbee and Z-Wave models absolutely require neutrals to power their radios continuously. Homes built before electrical codes mandated neutrals in switch boxes, generally pre-1980s, need specialty switches, line voltage rewiring, or surface mount alternatives. Do surface mount smart switches work when Wi-Fi is down? Surface mount smart switches using Thread or Zigbee protocols continue functioning when Wi-Fi fails because they communicate through independent mesh networks, but switches controlling smart bulbs lose functionality if the hub coordinating button-to-bulb messages loses power. Only direct binding configurations where buttons pair directly to bulbs maintain control during hub outages, and even then you lose automation logic and multi-device scenes. For true reliability during outages, in-wall switches controlling loads directly provide superior fallback behavior. How do I hide surface mount switches for cleaner aesthetics? Surface mount switches achieve visual discretion through color-matching wall paint, choosing neutral tones rather than glossy white, strategic placement behind furniture edges or inside closets where switches feel contextually appropriate, and using slim profile models under 5 mm thick. But genuine invisibility requires either in-wall installation or accepting the device as intentional design vocabulary, treating switches as minimalist sculptural elements rather than flaws to hide. For completely hidden automation, consider covert motion sensors triggering lights automatically, eliminating visible switches entirely. Here's the bottom line. The in-wall versus surface mount decision isn't about which technology is better. It's about alignment between your aesthetic tolerance, installation reality, and how permanently you inhabit a space. In-wall switches reward upfront effort with daily invisibility and mechanical reliability that persists through hub failures and protocol shifts. Surface mount switches preserve walls and enable experimentation, but introduce visual elements and maintenance rhythms that either fade into routine or accumulate into nagging friction.
If your walls contain neutral wiring and you're designing a space you'll inhabit for years, invest in in-wall switches and the electrician time they demand. If you're exploring automation's actual value in your life, surface mount switches let you iterate cheaply, discovering which controls matter before committing to permanence. Both approaches serve invisible intelligence, one through literal concealment, the other through thoughtful placement that makes technology feel less intrusive than the clutter of cords and remotes it replaces. The best choice leaves you noticing the quality of light throughout your day, not the switches that conjure it. That wraps up this episode of the Smart Home Setup Podcast. Thanks for listening. I know there's no shortage of podcasts competing for your time, so I appreciate you choosing this one. New episodes come out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you found this useful, leaving a 5-star rating and a quick review actually makes a tangible difference. It helps other people find the show when they're searching for smart home advice. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe or follow so you get notified the second new episodes drop. See you in the next one.